Thanks for tuning in. I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. And today I have the privilege of speaking with Mark Goldsmith, better known as MG, an in-demand cosmetics executive who volunteered for Principal for the Day at Rikers Island, Horizon Academy, the jail's high school. He saw tremendous potential in the young men and started getting out, staying out. And he built it from a volunteer mentorship program to a robust re-entry and workforce development program. And if that was not enough, he recently authored From Madison Avenue to Rikers Island, The Making of a Social Entrepreneur. MG, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I've been looking so forward to this. So if you can take us back to what inspired you on this personal journey.
It was very serendipitous, Lynn. This was not planned at all. It was my wife Arlene's suggestion that I be principal for the day because I get along very well with young people. So out to Rikers Island I went, walked into a classroom of these young men and wasn't quite sure what to say. So I started off with Tupac Shakur and Kobe Bryant. And they figured this white dude didn't know something. If he knew who Tupac was and knew who Kobe Bryant was. So I got their attention and then I did an analogy for them. And by the way, the correction officers came up to me afterwards and they said, these guys listen to nobody and they listened to you for 3 hours. What did you tell these guys? What I did was an analogy for them between General Motors and a drug cartel. I said to them, I'm going to teach you the corporate world. You're going to teach me the drug business. So I started out. I said, well, General Motors has a division called Cadillac and they have people called salesmen and they sell the cars. Do any of you guys know how to sell? Oh, we know how to sell, MG. We know how to do that. Okay. I said, now there's another person there who keeps the money. Do you have somebody who keeps the money? Oh, we have somebody who keeps the money. That's called finance. I said, then who selects who's going to be in the gang and who's not? Well, we got a couple of people that do that. I said, that's called personnel. And over the 3 hours, I placed each of them in a corporation doing real jobs, making legitimate money where they wouldn't be coming back to Rikers. And I really had fun doing it. There was no pressure. I never felt any anxiety. We hit it off right away. And I went back to work. 1 year later, I went back to principal for the day and I said, okay, where are you sending me this year? And they said, oh, you're going back to Rikers Island. They loved you. It turned out there was a principal named Gloria Ortiz, who was the principal at the Horizon Academy. In fact, the book that you spoke about, From Madison Avenue to Rikers Island, is dedicated to two women, my wife Arlene, who suggested I do it in the first place, and Gloria Ortiz, who was the one who said to the Department of Education, bring this guy back. We really want him back. So I went back the second year. We had another great session and I asked her if she would be okay if I continued to come out. And she said, okay. So I continued. I had a bartering and trading business at that time. I continued to go out, meeting the guys. And then one day, one of the guys said he was getting out. Now you have to understand, Rikers Island is kind of like a holding jail. You get arrested, you go to Rikers Island, and then you then either take a plea and go upstate to do time, or you beat your case. Very few do. Nobody bails out. In the 15 years, not a single person bailed out. We have a bail system that needs fixed in this country. It's for people like you and I, and not for poor young people from the inner city. So I told this kid, I'll meet you in Madison Avenue and 39th Street at Starbucks. And I met him at Starbucks. And this young man, his name is John Gonzalez. So I've known John well over 15 years. And we started to talk about what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. He had to finish his GED, and I found that very rewarding. And what happened was other guys got out, and then some guys went upstate. They got sentenced. Now, when you go upstate, it's called up top, and I would correspond with them while they were up top. Well, being married to Arlene, who runs a highly successful childcare agency called New Alternatives for Children, she is a PhD social worker and has spent her whole life in not-for-profit. We started to talk about the possibility of me actually starting an organization. Coming from the marketing and advertising business, hence the line from Madison Avenue to Rikers Island, I came up with the name Getting Out and Staying Out. I figured, what's the objective of all this? The objective is that they get out and they stay out. And that they do. The recidivism rate at Rikers Island is over 60%. My recidivism rate at GOSO is under 15% if they join the program. Now, joining the program wasn't just signing up. I always had them do something along the way. This was not going to be a free ride. So on Rikers, in order to sit down and talk to me, they had to write me a letter requesting that they be part of the program. And then they had to do a resume. Of course, none of them had ever done a resume. So I taught them how to do resumes and how to write a cover letter. And that's how you got into the program. Once you got out and started to come to my office, when I finally had one, there was something called the Job Readiness Program. The Job Readiness Program took 2 to 3 weeks to complete, and there were about 15 different stages. At the end of that curriculum, you then had to call my secretary, make an appointment to see me, show up in my office on time, shirt and tie, with a cover letter and a resume. And that was the test to see if you had passed the job readiness curriculum. If you passed, then we would send you out on job interviews. So that's a quick recap of how it all got started. That's it.
Well, very, very smart and so successful. And the more I read about the organization, there were 3 E's: education, employment, and emotional well-being.
Let's deal with the third E, emotional well-being. Arlene said to me from the beginning, only hire social workers with a master's degree. These kids have been through such trauma that if you can't do some form of therapy with them, if you can't deal with the emotional things that they've been through, having been at Rikers Island, the education and the employment will never work. And so that's what we did. To this day, you cannot get a job at Getting Out and Staying Out as a counselor without a master's degree in social work. So that third E was extremely, extremely important. Education was obvious. We started our own GED program run by the New York City Department of Education. And I already described the job readiness program, which is how they got into the employment sector. So that was it: education, employment, and emotional well-being. Well, some people don't appreciate the importance of that. It's kind of been pounded into me for 60 years of marriage to Arlene. And she made it very clear that her clients are in the same boat, that you really need social workers who have an advanced degree and understand. They're not doing the kind of therapy that a psychiatrist would do, but they're doing very in-depth stuff where these kids have to open up about their background.
Absolutely. And the more, and we're going to get to your book in a bit, but the more that I understood about the organization, and after reading that fabulous book, you have this secret sauce to be able to relate to people. And what would you say your ingredients are? It seems like you did so well. If you were to teach someone else.
The number one ingredient is passion for the mission. And I talk about that, the difference between a not-for-profit and a for-profit. For-profits are driven, I'm a Milton Friedman advocate. The whole purpose of a corporation is to make money. That's the purpose of a corporation. The purpose of a not-for-profit is to dramatically affect people's lives in a positive way. And you need to have a passion for that. It can't just, and it's different from driving a profit. It's much more involved with the full staff. I was a bit of a benevolent despot in my corporate years. I was considered to be a little dictatorial periodically. And that just wasn't going to work in not-for-profit. In not-for-profit, it's very much of a communal effort and everybody being involved. So sometimes it frustrated me that it took so long to get to the final decision, but I learned to live with that. And of course, Arlene was a very big help. If you're looking for the secret sauce, it was really her, because she's relentless in what she does. She's a perfectionist, and she's also a very good writer, which didn't hurt when it came to the idea of me writing a book.
I think also you see individuals as people who can get better, and that optimistic attitude was very helpful.
You just have to have it, because the odds are stacked against you. Just in the whole idea of funding and getting started, there are so many other organizations out there. And here I was, 65-year-old, somewhat semi-retired business executive who was going to try and crack the re-entry business, if you will, which meant I had to compete against other not-for-profits looking for the same type of money. Now, the funding of not-for-profit, particularly mine, it came from different areas. It came from private foundations, which is a very important resource. There are foundations, and you can determine by going to the foundation center which ones concentrate on criminal justice reform.
Mhm.
So that's a major effort. New York City Council, city, state, and federal funding is also another opportunity for funding. And then, of course, you have benefits or parties where you can raise money. And so those are the plus individual donors. But once again, being the president and CEO, you're also the chief fundraiser. And that takes up a great deal of time and patience. Now, I brought to that world the business acumen of an ROI, a return on investment. In other words, what I said to potential funders was, this is what we're going to do with the money you give us. These are the results we're going to achieve. And those measurements and outcomes became very, very important. And it was something unique for these foundations to hear from a corporate executive telling them right up front what they were going to get for their money. Because usually a not-for-profit talks a lot about their clients, and they talk about the good they do, and which is all important. But what about the results?
Mhm.
How many guys got their GED? How many guys went on to college? How many guys got jobs? How many guys kept their jobs? How many guys got promoted? And all these facts and figures, which we compiled, we delivered in a business-like fashion to the funders. And that was a huge part of our building, getting out and staying out.
Excellent.
And now you come to the most important part
Right.
of all.
Yes.
There's an adage that I have at GOSO. It's called, it's all about the guys.
Mhm.
It's not about me. It's not about the foundations.
Mhm.
It's not about the city. It's all about the guys. And everything that we did was driven toward the guys. We needed them to step up and not only take care of themselves, but be able to talk about it. Whenever I have events or parties, I always invite GOSO guys to come and talk. And their talk is always more powerful than mine, much more powerful. We had a recent neighborhood book party where young men spoke, and they'll be speaking again next Tuesday. And they do it at the benefits also. And they love to do it.
Very powerful.
They're talking about their own successes, successes that they never imagined that they would ever have. Now, needless to say, I become somewhat of a father figure. Now I've become a grandfather figure, but I get Father's Day cards, and I'm what was missing in their lives. And what made me different from everything else in their life is I didn't go away. I kept coming back. I kept being there for them. I was on Rikers literally every week for 15 years when I was running GOSO, and I never thought of it as a day's work. Now, we should talk a little bit about Rikers because I have a different point of view. I don't think they should close Rikers. The idea to close Rikers is there'd be a jail in each borough, but the problem is no borough wants the jails. And of course, the positive side of being in the neighborhood is that the people whose kin are locked up there, they can go see them easier. But my point of view is that we should bring all the goods, all the services right to Rikers Island and change it, going from the worst jail in America to the best jail in America. And we could do that. So I'm trying to get to the sources at hand to talk to them about my concept for Rikers Island, which is don't open up 5 jails, just have this jail be the best damn jail in the United States by improving the education, job training, job placement, so that by the time a guy gets ready to leave Rikers, he's ready.
Okay.
Remember, I did it for young men 16 to 24 years of age. We could have programs for all ages. Now, one other thing I've been asked, we might get to later, is what about women? Well, let me tell you about the women. While I was on Rikers, I made a trip to the women's jail. And let me tell you, they had me for lunch. I'll tell you, they were smarter, meaner, nastier with women's issues. And I just decided it was more than I could take on.
Okay.
So I never included women. Now, I understand getting out and staying out is thinking about bringing women into the program, but I've counseled with them to do a lot of homework and understand that the women's situation is more difficult than the men's because you have the entire sexual thing over and above everything else that they do. So that's my answer to why we never took women into getting out and staying out, even though I think in the future, there's no question they could handle women.
Okay. Well, thank you for adding that. And I want to give you adequate time to talk about your book, From Madison Avenue to Rikers Island. I sat down one evening thinking I would read 10, 20, 30 pages. Well, I could not get off the couch. I read it in one sitting. I highly recommend it. It was touching. It was informative. Can you tell us a little bit about what made you write the book and what that experience was like?
I really decided there's kind of 2 parts to the book. It's part memoir, telling my story, but then it's a part how-to that I figure perhaps other people might want to know how to start a not-for-profit. Now, needless to say, Arlene, having built New Alternatives for Children from 0 to a $30 million organization, she's done it. And she, and it talks about all the aspects that you have to take into consideration. I'm a multifaceted person and I can do a lot of things at the same time. And that's what you have to do. Because I was my own real estate agent, I couldn't find an office. Why? Landlords didn't want my guys in the building. So what's the answer to that? If you are looking for an office space in Harlem and the landlord says, I don't want you because you're clients, what's the answer? The answer was a storefront. That way they didn't have to go through the elevator or through the stairwell. So my first 2 or 3 offices were all on East 116th Street. I would go in the morning and roll up the gate and I was like a single person. And I did almost every job at GOSO by myself to start because I have no problem with work. And at the same time, I was going to Rikers Island. Then I hired an assistant and I started to assemble a staff. I built slowly, but the staff, I always refer to them as kind of lean and mean. They knew they were there to work and work hard. They had to be involved in the process, think that they really wanted to do some good, and at the same time use their skills to help these young men. So the staffing up is extremely important. the fundraising is extremely important. Then the whole idea was I just dissected the whole process of what happened those first few years, taking care of every single aspect of a not-for-profit. And once again, having Arlene as a guide didn't hurt because she had actually done it. So once again, I didn't start out with the idea that I'd ever write a book. The whole idea about writing the book was twofold: to tell the story, and then very importantly, other people who were thinking about the fact that, you know, a lot of people because of COVID have retired earlier than they expected to. What are they going to do? What a wonderful opportunity. Now, how do you find out what you should do? Well, the way you do that is you volunteer. You go to different organizations that have different missions, and you volunteer and you spend time until you find something that really is to your liking, where you're comfortable doing it. This should not be a chore. If this is a chore, and if you have difficulty relating to clients, like, it's just not for you. It just isn't.
It's a win-win for everyone.
You have to be comfortable doing what you're doing. And then, as I said before, the passion is extremely important.
And also in the book, I really enjoyed reading the stories. Can you share with us a success story?
The success stories are phenomenal because these guys come from a place where any sort of success outside of maybe selling more drugs than the next guy, that's how it's measured. But I think what happens with the guys is they're amazed by their own achievements. They're amazed by how well they do in school when they apply themselves. They're amazed by how well they do in a job because I've taught them the very basics of employment. You get in early, you leave late, you don't talk on the phone, and you do what's assigned to you, and you'll get ahead just by doing that. And they said, just by that? I said, well, sure, because the rest of the people are not doing that. They're coming in late, they're leaving early, they're taking long lunch breaks, and they're just not working hard. So the whole idea is to get into an organization where you feel comfortable, and then, of course, your coworkers won't like you at all because you're working harder than them, and they'll call you all sorts of names for doing it, but you have a mission. And in my own career, every time I got a call from a headhunter to move on, it's because I had a success. I would launch a brand or something. People, oh, who ran that brand? Oh, that guy Goldsmith. Let's go get him. And so what you need to do is you build a reputation, and you start to get talked about by your boss and by your company as a leader, somebody who could really do it. So the guys right now are doing all sorts of things. It's like one success story after another. One guy owns a trucking company. He calls it's called I Haul Junk. And that's what he does. I mean, he got a great name for it. And he got himself a truck, and that's what he does. Another young man, a lot of them get jobs with the city because the city employs people to do various tasks so they can get on the phone and they can do, they're very, if you will, they give good phone. They're very good. They can talk. They've just been talking about the wrong stuff more than anything else. Now, the stories that are in the book, I decided to put them in the book because of the fact that it's living proof. In other words, the program works. And every one of those stories is kind of heartwarming and gives you a good all over feeling, but they're not all that complicated. They're just not. It's very simple to be successful in this world if you're willing to work. And you're willing to put in the time and work overtime and let your boss know that you're the one. I think rather than just one story, every single story has merit in the book. And once again, our being there, one young man met on Rikers, Carlos, and then he went up top. We corresponded while he was up top. He took college courses while he was up top, and then he graduated. So we went out to Bard College to his graduation.
Oh,
But
nice.
once again, we were there. There wasn't one other person from his family there except us. So it's just,
Well,
it's amazing how little support these young men have. It's just beyond. And all of a sudden, somebody shows up who cares, who's there for them, and they become
well,
like-
to your credit, that's how they rose to the top. There was
Well,
someone
but
there.
once again, you know, one of the things that happens in this business is you get more out of it than they do. What happens is the feeling that you get when you have these successes is so phenomenal. It's not the reason you do it. You know, you do it because you want to get the job done. But in the end, the feeling that you get when these guys succeed is it's like it's better than you succeeding yourself. Because
It's
you
a
know that you're the
win-win.
person who lit the fire.
Absolutely. But
that's it.
because you listened and cared, and it was such a phenomenal experience, that's why you got these results.
And I got I got an awful lot of very good press also because I was kind of unique coming from the business world.
And I can't thank you enough for this interview and for all you've done. And I recommend highly that everyone buy a book because it's so inspiring. And then
wasn't it a quick, easy read also?
Easy,
It's
easy.
not laborious to go through it. You can just
It's a pleasure.
you could almost do it in a day.
Yeah, I did it sitting on my couch. I thought I was going to be doing something else, but I read the whole book in one sitting. I didn't get up. So
There you go.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you. A pleasure.
Take
Take
care
care.
now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.